If you're from a small town, you may be familiar with that noise. While I have spent a lot of time in small towns, I had never experienced it until I heard this siren in Thorsby, a place I go a lot. It went off at noon. I was alarmed, but it got me thinking, why is the siren blaring and how did it get here? Well, it turns out many of them have quite a history. Some were civil defense sirens or air raid sirens. They were put up throughout the country during the Cold War, more than 5 decades ago. Others were used by fire departments, and in some towns, they were both, like the one in Thorsby. There are also places like Bowden. According to a local history book, the small central Alberta town first looked at a siren in 1943. At that time, it was using the school bell. It wasn't until 9 years later, on July 14th, 1952, that Bowden purchased its siren.
And our emergency control center now...
And in Wabamun, Bill Purdy, who's been with the local fire department since it started in 1964, remembers when this siren was put in a year later. It was used to alert firefighters of natural disasters and, of course, fires.
When they'd get the information done, then they would push a button on the side of the phone, which would set the siren off. And that siren would go for 10 ups and downs.
Wabamun moved to a pager system in the mid-1970s, which meant the siren wasn't the primary alert system anymore. Just one of the many changes Bill has seen in his time.
It's so overwhelming to look back at my service of, that many years and just see the changes that have happened in the whole fire services right across not only Alberta, any communities, but right across Canada.
While these have been going off at noon for more than 5 decades in some communities, I couldn't officially find why that time was chosen. Many people told me it was just to signal lunch, but also...
We had the siren go every day at noon to make sure it was functioning properly.
There are also places like Holden, which is southeast of Edmonton, and is where people hear the sound not just at noon. The siren goes off 3 times a day. Noon, 6, and 9 p.m. And at one point, it also went off at 8 in the morning.
As a young family back in the day raising children here in the village, noon was lunchtime, 6 o'clock was supper, and 9 o'clock the kids came home because that was time to come home. And it was just a really nice kind of a reminder for everybody.
The 4 communities we've talked about are not the only ones that have sirens that go off. Those are just the ones I could find near Edmonton. There are also many that have stopped the tradition over time. The 90s saw many of the air raid sirens removed, and it was only 10 years ago a complaint was made to the town of Thorsby about the noise. So the town contacted Alberta Health Services, who did a noise survey.
They found out that it was not harmful in any way, at least for the short duration that they had, and it was about 106.8 decibels.
After the study was complete, the town did shorten the duration of the siren, and a vote was held to see if it should keep blasting. Though there are people who don't like the sound, the people I spoke to say it's a staple of home.
As annoying as it is, it's a part of everyday life, especially in small towns.
We laugh and say, I wonder what time it is.
It's just a fixture. It's like, oh, it's lunchtime.
It just works for this village, and yeah, we all really like it.
While there is largely no practical use for these sirens now, they are a signal of Canadian history.
That was my obligation to let's keep it in service. It's part of the history, and why do we want to get rid of that part of that history? And a lot of people will talk about it, why it's going off and so on, but it's there, and hopefully it'll stay there.
I guess it's just another piece of history in a small town that disappears, and it's like the go away of the elevators and everything else. Pretty soon what's left.
So the next time you're cruising through a small town, stick around until noon. Lauren Fink, CBC News, Edmonton.